share my screen so that we can get to the purpose of why we're all here today. Whoops, that is not go to the beginning. So, thanks for everybody who's here in the middle of the day. I realize it's 1 o'clock on Thursday Pacific time, so I know a lot of folks said they're going to watch afterwards. They're working. But we have two really powerful astrological events in this 24 hours period of time, yesterday and today, that I think are worth noting and working with the energies because they can inform us a little bit about the times we live in. And the first is the Mars-Jupiter conjunction. So that was actually yesterday, August 14th at 9:50 a.m. Last time that happened was May 2022. The next time it's going to happen is on November 15th, 2026. So a relatively rare occurrence, but nowhere near as rare as, for example, what Pluto's doing with Capricorn and Aquarius. And this image to me speaks to the third eye and the throat. That's why she's kind of indigo blue and light blue. And I believe that those are some of the things that are being activated in us right now. And I'll get to the why when we get to what this conjunction might mean. But let's go ahead and just start with some really super simple stuff. I'm going to be eventually teaching a course on astrology, but for right now, we'll just get some really simple things started. First, we have Mars. Mars rules Aries. That energy is the I am energy. I am energy is about drive, will, desire, personal power, taking action. All those things are Mars's wheelhouse. Jupiter rules Sagittarius. And we often think of that energy as I see. And if we think about seeing and vision, it almost really reminds me of, and it's a planet of expansion, but how do we expand? We expand by what we choose to see. We expand by what we dream about. We expand by what we perceive from our third eye, learning to go with the energy. So it's a planet that's associated with luck, inspiration, generosity, optimism, hope. It's a very, again, expansive, energetic of a planet. And we have the Mars Jupiter conjunction. A conjunction is when two planets are at the same degree. But also in astrology, we treat a conjunction, depending on who you are, within 2 or 3 degrees of each other, means they're close enough to really be communicating. And I think the analogy of like roommates is really wonderful. If anybody's ever had the experience of having roommates, when people get along, when planets get along, that co-creative experience can be really powerful. It can be a really transformative, interesting thing that comes up. But also, if people don't get along and they have to live in the same place, that can also be challenging or awkward, right? So conjunctions, I tend to think of them as just these energetics that come together. The question I always ask is, how can I and we work with these energies in the most optimal, empowering way for ourselves and for the collective, right? So these two are together in the sign of Gemini. Gemini is the sign of the twins. Mutable masculine air is the characteristics of this sign. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, our planet of communication. Especially, I think of Mercury as 3D communication. It's also a sign of conversation and cognition. Gemini is known, if you think about the symbol for the Gemini, it's the twins. So they can go one way or the other. It's a very adaptable, versatile, unconventional energy. Geminis can see the point of view of all people, and they like talking to people with different perspectives. That's kind of also an expansive version of its energetic in its positive sign and its positive way. So when we look at this conjunction, I want to offer for us and let's think about this. This was exact yesterday, but I think we're going to feel both of these things about 5 or 6 days before and 5 or 6 days after. So this is an awareness around this bubble of time. Mid-August. Transmutation is one word that really comes to mind. And the upside of Mars, if we have the best version of what can go on here, this is about taking action and honing in with intention. focusing. The shadow side is conflict and aggression. That's just general about Mars. But when Mars is conjunct Jupiter, this supports the positive side because Jupiter is that planet of expansion, as I just mentioned. So this has a potential to be a powerful time for us to be able to work with what we see, work with the energies. It's also a time I offer of personal empowerment. Shadow side of Gemini is almost like a scattered, confused energy where Gemini is known because it's talking and it's all over the place talking to anybody. It's kind of hard to get things done when you don't ever really focus in, right? And the inner critic of Gemini is also one of its worst enemies. But the positive, as I mentioned, is Gemini can see all sides. Gemini can connect with many, many people. So I would offer that this conjunction, if we can work with it, invites us to dream big, invites us to expand, also invites us to focus and to dig deep. So if we think about that kind of the positive side of Mars, that intention, but also Mercury is in retrograde right now. And I mentioned that Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So let's plan on finalizing things next month in September when Mercury stations direct. The final thing that came through for this conjunction is inner vision. So Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, as I just said, is in retrograde. So this is a theme that's going to come up at the full moon too, and I'll get to that when in a couple days for you guys. But don't let others sell you a too good to be true story because you just want a quick resolution. We are not living in times of quick resolution right now. We're living in fast times where things can come and manifest. But if we're thinking about the whole picture, collective resolution of what truth is, our structures are still shaking out. So if it's too good to be true, look within. The too good to be true that you really want is totally possible, and it's not too good to be true. But part of the energetic that's coming with what's happening today next, and I'll get to this in the next slide, is about the flows of energy and patience and stamina. So we got to feel the truth of the expansion that we're experiencing and that we're dreaming, our truth for ourselves. Don't let anybody knock you off your center or tell you something that like we've got to use our internal guidance here. Let's move on to Mars square Saturn. This takes place on August 15th, today. It's exact at 10:30 p.m. Pacific time tonight. Last time it happened was November last year, and it'll be happening again December next year. So we have the same woman, but this time it's an interesting color that she is. So she could be green with envy and red with anger and aggression, or she could be green with prosperity and red with personal empowerment. These are the choices that we're getting to make right now. This is why this is such, and astrologers are saying this, and when I do the podcast, it's uncanny. The charts that are coming through right now for all these things, a lot of us have never seen this stuff before. So we are living in really powerful times. Also, this is not going to last forever. There's a span of time, and I'm going to offer it's this year. It's about 2-year span of time that we've got to really work with this kind of when things are shaking out, there is a lot more malleable energy. So it's important for us to be attuning ourselves to the energy and learning how to see what we see. So here are the two planets involved here in this. This is a square, Mars square Saturn. We already talked about Mars, rules Aries, I am, drive, will, desire, personal power. Saturn is a little bit different energy than Jupiter, as we all know. Saturn rules Capricorn. So Saturn's words are I use. Cap is the surefoot, mountain goat. Cap is our structures. Saturn, I would offer, Saturn kind of gets a bad rap in the sense that it can be a restrictive planet. If Jupiter is expansive, Saturn is considered, oh no, Saturn, restrictive. But I offer two things. Saturn is the planet of karma. So if there's karma involved that needs to be dealt with, Saturn won't let the reins loose. Also, Saturn is about grounding down into 3D reality. So if there's anything about what we're dreaming as we're expanding and it's getting bigger and it's getting more beautiful, Saturn wants to make sure that the foundation is there. So the discipline and the patience so that we can create what our heart desires in this lifetime and in this next span of time. Saturn's really helpful for that. So Saturn, I think of as the planet of karma, and it's just energy, and it's here to, I think all the things that are coming through are really here to support us. But a square is an interesting aspect, kind of like Saturn. A square gets a little bit of a bad rap. It's considered an energetic that's a hard aspect. It means the planets are at 90-degree angles of each other. In physics, and this points at the shadow side of the square, the physics, it's known, the 90-degree angle is known as the angle of maximum destruction. So you've got one wave coming in this way, one wave coming in that way. They both kind of need to just collapse and destruct so as to create something new. So the conflicting waves can turn into a new wave. So the potential here is what I have on the bottom. So it should say conflict, we can conflict, but then we need to engage, and then we can have a new creation. So the key here is engagement, and this is where I think the throat chakra stuff is really important too. These two are in the same, oh no, they're not in the same sign. Saturn is still in the sign of Gemini. We already went through Gemini. Mars is still in the sign of Gemini, excuse me. Saturn is in the sign of Pisces. This is where things get interesting. Pisces is a sign of the fish. Pisces is mutable, feminine water, ruled by Neptune, the planet of seeing clearly and seeing through deception. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac wheel, and it's often known to be this deeply sensitive sign, an intuitive sign, because it's taken all the lessons of the year of the zodiac, of the wheel of the zodiac, starting off with I am Aries energy. Aries is the first part of that wheel, and you go all the way around, you come to Pisces, and you've gleaned all this feedback throughout this whole astrological year, and you come into Pisces, and it's the culmination of these lessons. So again, this is inviting us to use our intuition. Pisces is very sensitive and very good to support us in reading energy. The other thing that Pisces is known for, it's a peacekeeping sign. Giving to others for peace, moves quickly for peace. The word reciprocity is very fitting here, I think. It's about the bigger picture. It's almost like starting off with the I am and coming all the way around, realizing the collective. So to have the planet of karma in a sign that is about the collective is a really cool square. Wave functions collapsing to create something new. So Mars is in Gemini, I mentioned. So when these two things come together, here's three themes that I would offer. Collective vision, as I was just alluding to. Saturn in Pisces invites us to turn inward, to reflect, and to trust ourselves and our intuition. But when we're reflecting, we can think about how have we been able to be of service? Not just to ourselves. Service is about what we do for others, how we support the collective, how we give our light to the world. So reflect on, give ourselves the positive pat on the back for being the light that we are. Also, how can we infuse more goodwill? That should say peace, P-E-A-C-E, both today and moving forward. If we have a vision for the future, how can we make sure that vision is about the bright future for everybody? That's what this square is going to help us realize. Squares are breakdown to breakthrough. Things come up, whatever happens is so that we can see more clearly. So this gets us to our second point, personal truth. The upside of Mars in Gemini is that it reminds us of the I am power of seeing both in all sides. It reminds us of the power of choice and the power of communication and the power of being open to having conversations. That's all very Gemini. The shadow side of Gemini is we can be a little scattered and a little fragmented. Instead of focusing energy, we can get a little blown out. So the way out is through our own personal truth. There's these overarching I hope you can see, like, these two things do have some similar themes and some different themes here. So Mars in Gemini is inviting us to speak and to share our personal truth. And this is where we are of service to the collective, even if we live in times that feel like there's intense conflict and intense polarization. We're not that different. We are all one. And to consider that your voice is and your truth is a potent agent of change, which gets us to the third thing. Here we have it again, transmutation. That was in the conjunction. It happened yesterday. It's in the square here now. So the upside of Mars is action and intention. The shadow side of Mars is aggression and conflict. We already kind of are getting familiar with that. But squaring Saturn offers us a choice to take action for our goals in a mindful way, but a powerful way. We're not just simply creating, we're not just creating for our ego. And if we're getting feedback that it's not working, we're going to be able to let it go and let things readjust. So it's this very feelers out, trusting the flows, trusting what's coming through, not just igniting things because we want to have something to look at, really being mindful of how we are making a contribution is our transmutation contribution, excuse me. So that's what the backdrop is. And this is why I felt like it'd be a really powerful time for us to, those of us who are here today, thank you guys for coming. And then also anybody who watches after, just like the style of my podcast, consider this something that happens across time and space to collectively continue to infuse the world with the vibrations that are healing and that are uplifting and that are just sort of the antidote and the medicine that we all feel we need. I'm going to talk about three different things to get before we get into the, I'm going to talk about two different things, sorry, and then we're going to get into the practice, but I'm going to tell you what the practice is. So new fringe science, and these are two high level concepts that I talk about in my Heart Alchemy course. If you've taken the Karma Clearing Project or you've taken the Heart Alchemy course, you'll be very familiar with it. If you're interested, I have a whole course that's dedicated to all this. It's cool because the course ended up being a whole course because there's a lot of new science. I call it, it's the fringe science is what some people call it. I like new science, even though some of the stuff that we're quoting has been around for 20 years. It's just not in the mainstream because it kind of does upset a little bit of the structures that are at hand, but we live in these times. Pluto's going back into Capricorn in September, and it's going to leave in November. So let's get to the alternative science. And I want to start with a quote. Who are we but the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, particularly if we accept them? This is the idea that we are our limitlessness and we are the limiting factor. But also some of the stuff that we've been taught that's in the collective may merit to be seen in different eyes. This is a 2012 image from the Encyclopedia Britannica. I believe you can still find it online today. I found it a year or two ago when I created this. This is 2 years ago when I created the Heart Alchemy course. This was still up on the Encyclopedia Britannica. So, but if we look at this closely, it shows that we didn't actually evolve from apes slowly over thousands of years. That even though evolution, I'm not challenging evolution here. I'm just saying that it breaks down. I'm offering when it comes to, we're finding documentation, and I'm going to share this with you right now, that it's been shown to break down when it comes to humans. So if we look at this image, we see the dark green lines show physical evidence that we have of the connection. And if we look at the dashed green lines, that means there's no physical evidence for this supposed connection. So we can kind of see that evolution, Darwin's evolution, I'm just going to say evolution is a fact. They've proven evolution, but they actually haven't proven it with humans. And so I want to share two studies. One is a 2003 study in National Geographic News. They published an article comparing the DNA of two what they call anatomically modern humans. That's a AMH, anatomically modern human, is the way that researchers have been referring to us now, since there's really not that much evidence. But they compared two anatomically modern humans to the DNA. They're comparing DNA of Neanderthals. So these are both from about, all this is these fossils were found, or these The anatomically modern humans, as well as the Neanderthals, were dated to between 23 and 29,000 years ago. And to quote the authors of the study, they say, our results add to the evidence collected previously in different fields, making the hypothesis of a Neanderthal heritage very unlikely. They didn't find any evidence in the DNA that we have come from them. So then if we're starting to say, okay, maybe I'm not from a Neanderthal, then okay, I'm an anatomically modern human. What does that mean? It means that we still function and look that as they did 2000 centuries ago. We have a lot of technological advancements. We've learned a lot of things, but also we know if you think about the yuga cycles and the cycles of time, there's a much larger picture here that talks about descending into times of not knowing, coming back up out of them. But I want to get to a 2008 study of anatomically modern humans. And this was from the University of Florence in Italy. They found that there was a Cro-Magnoid individual who lived in southern Italy 28,000 years ago. And they found that they were genetically and anatomically similar to a modern European, showing that we're kind of our own unique little human thing, that maybe humans didn't come from apes. And in my course, I talk about the other science that shows that, we have very possibly cohabited with them, which is why, in theory, we should get along with apes. Let's go to heart intelligence. These are just two pieces of science. Like I said, the course goes into a lot more, but I find the information helps the brain relax so that we can get into the heart alchemy practice. That's what I want to get to. That's what I think is important for us to be doing today, but I'm kind of giving you the astrology and giving you the practice for the why I'm offering this. So here, I drew this myself. I want to offer the idea that our heart informs our brain, not the other way around. And they have had some wonderful research showing this. And this research comes from a 1991 study published in the Journal of Neurocardiology from the University of Montreal in Canada. They found 40,000 more or less specialized neurites in the heart that have never been recognized before. They're called sensory neurites. They're like brain cells, but they're brain-like cells, but they're not in the brain. They're in the heart. So we already know that we have neurons in our brain and neurons on our spinal cord, but this discovery of this many neurites, actually neurites are equivalent to neurons. They're tiny projections that come from the main body of a neuron. They perform functions in the body. So neurites both are that you can tell which ones carry information away from the cell and which ones are receiving information into. I want to say most all, if not all, I forget the written number, I don't have it in front of me, but basically it's pretty much all the neurites in the heart are afferent, which means they're sending information up to the brain, not the other way around. They confirmed this. But also, this isn't really in sync with the mainstream, what we think about ourselves. We've been taught that it's all in the brain, that we're these big brained, really smart, superior individuals because of our brains. That's why humans can conquer nature, right? Well, I think our ancestors knew, and I would like for us to have an experience today. And I think we all intuitively know that our heart is where it's at. So these are some of the things in this picture that some functions that I would invite you to consider that you have. You can directly communicate with other organs. The heart can directly communicate with other organs of the body. The heart has its own sense of intelligence because the heart is what's receiving the energy and the information first. In the course, I talk about how the heart has an electromagnetic field, and they've documented that the electromagnetic field from the brain compared to the heart's is way bigger. Period. They've documented the heart is going to get the information first before it gets to the brain. So of course we should have some neurites there to make sure that we're informing the brain, right? We can also create, so there's heart intelligence, also states of deep intuition. If we can think about the heart being the first thing to receive the energy, and when we can go into our heart and we can even have precognitive abilities. We can also, has been documented by many people, Joe Dispenza and others, that we can intentionally self-heal. We can super learning meaning above linear time and space. We can also self-regulate. And we're going to experience hopefully a little bit of self-regulation here next. And this has the ability to affect our ability to be resilient to change, our ability, our longevity, essentially, right? So let's get to the practice. And I'm going to invite us, I'm going to lead us into a certain type of breathing. I'm going to invite us to use our third eye and our imagination visualization to be breathing through our lungs, but also breathing through our heart. We're going to connect to our heart, and then we're going to get to the practice. So let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. Maybe you turn your camera off if you have it on. If you want to, just you're going to be closing your eyes and going with it. And just notice that your shoulders are over your hips, that you're seated sort of comfortably, and notice, I'm going to invite you to notice your breath, but begin to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Studies have shown that humans, adult humans, 80% of us at least, have very shallow breathing. So we're going to start to deepen the breath. I'm going to invite you to entertain a count of 5 on your inhale, breathing in through your nose, and 5 on your exhale, breathing out through your mouth. And as you're breathing, I apologize if you hear barking dogs. Focusing on your breath, trying for a count of 5, just making it longer and deeper and comfortable is what we're going for. Breathing in through the nose, breathing out through the mouth. To a count of 5 if you can. And now I invite you to imagine that even though you're breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, that you're also energetically breathing through your heart. So our heart, the heart chakra at the center of our chest, receives and sends energy forward and almost in this like ice cream cone shaped expansive out through the front of the body and then out through the back of the body. So you're breathing in through the front and back of the heart, and you're sending the breath out through the front and back of your heart. Still breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the mouth to a count of 5. This is something that I learned from the Heart Math Institute and from a course I took with Greg Braden. And the idea is this is how we start to self-regulate. When we're doing this kind of breathing, this gets our heart and our brain to sync up. And they've shown that the EEGs and the EKGs, we can sync up our heartbeat and our brain. So just a few more times, breathing in through the nose for 5, breathing out through the mouth for 5, and breathing in through the heart, front and back, and breathing out through the heart. And to help us focus, I invite you to take your palm, take your fingertips, and touch it to the center of your chest where your heart chakra is, where your heart is in your chest, but right at your center. This is going to help you. If you feel your fingertips on your chest, focus your energy on your heart center and continue this 5 count breathing in and out of the heart. And then I'm going to invite us, this is where we're going to get to practice the transmutation now. What's an elevated emotion that you want to experience and that you want to share? Love, peace, harmony, hope. Maybe there's a word, maybe you can just start to elevate your emotion, your vibration. So we're not only breathing in through the heart and out through the heart. We're beginning to cultivate this emotion. And you can imagine that you're receiving it. I have a large dog who can sense energy, and all the dogs are around me right now. It's really great. They can feel energy. Whatever the emotion is, you can imagine now that you're cultivating it within yourself, but you're taking it in and you're sending it out. So first, just imagine your own energetic fields cultivating this elevated emotion. And imagine that you're charging yourself up. Staying connected to your heart. Breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, but breathing in through your heart and out through your heart, and sending this energetic, sending this cultivated higher vibrational emotion. So now you're charging yourself up sufficiently. You can imagine that now you're sending it out. Now you're sending it out into the collective. And because we know that in higher dimensions, we exist beyond time and space, you can imagine that you're sending it around the world. I talk about a web of light in the podcast a lot. That's my vision of it, is that each one of us are these little nodes of light. And so you're sending your signature, your high vibration into the collective. Sending it in, taking it in, sending it out, excuse me. Still breathing through your heart. And the karmic thing here, I hope you can feel it. Everything we're cultivating, everything you're cultivating, you're receiving. So let's spend a little bit more time here. Sending high vibrational energy out into the world, cultivating it, taking it in, but sending it out. Let's take 6 more breaths. All right. And with that, I invite you to open your eyes, maybe have a look around. Whenever I do this practice, I always love the way that the colors seem to pop a little bit more. Things seem more clear. It's as if the high vibration emotion cleanses us out. But even notice how you feel. And that's it. That's the practice that I brought us here together. Before I invite us all to share, I want to be able to post this to my YouTube. So I'm really quickly just going to say some things for us to look forward to in the next span of time. Hopefully by this next moon, you're going to see the nonprofit launch an online herbal store. We are an herbal farm that is an herbal livestock guardian. Also, I'm doing a Tarot 101 class and an herbal preparations class coming up in the next short span of time. So have a look at those or look out for those. And thank you so much for sharing. I'm gonna stop the recording here and go ahead and let everybody who's here share. All right, bright blessings. Thank you for joining me, and tons of love.